This year's team is definitely better than last year's. So why do we all feel worse?
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Friday, August 14th, 2026, and welcome back in to the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we're going to open up the Orioles Mailbag with the O's having the off day on Thursday before heading to Tampa for a series against the Rays this weekend. I've got 11 questions to answer, all coming from you, the listeners. We'll talk about most valuable Oriole. We'll talk about what's been so frustrating about this year. We'll look back on this deadline and last deadline and previous trades to the Adley Rutschman stature and much, much more coming up on this episode. So let's pretty much just dive right in to this mailbag. But first, I do want to thank you all for getting me over 11,000 subscribers here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. If you are subscribed, which if you're not, you should do so now, we're doing a giveaway here to celebrate. And I am giving away the Adley Rutschman golfing bobblehead. Yes, he's not an Oriole anymore, but it's still a cool bobblehead if you would like it. 2 steps to enter. 1, subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. 2, put in the comment section of today's video or any of the videos earlier in this week and tell me what was your favorite Adley Rutschman moment with the Orioles. The entries will close tonight at midnight. I will pick the winner, randomly drawing it this weekend, and then next week on the show, the winner will be announced. So make sure you get in the drawing for the Adley Rutschman bobblehead. All right, let's jump into the mailbag on today's episode. I got 12 questions, actually, from you, the listeners, and the questions will begin from the Everydayer Club, because remember, if you join the Everydayer Club, well, one of the many perks is you automatically guarantee that your mailbag questions will be answered when we do mailbag shows here. So let's begin with the first question. This one comes from Justin in the Everydayer Club Discord. Justin says, Boz, Bradish, and Young are all locked up for next year. Rogers seems highly interested in remaining with the team, which is true. Let's say they do, in fact, re-sign Trevor Rogers after the season. That basically solidifies the starters in a year where there aren't any other realistic ace options for the Orioles to pursue. The offense, defense, and bullpen have been overall underwhelming. Say both Ryan Helsley and Felix Bautista are back. What 3 to 5 moves or approaches would you make to improve the team? This could be internal promotions, free agent signings, trades, or philosophy shifts. Good question from Justin. Brett via email also had kind of a similar question saying, hey, if you were basically magically made Orioles GM this offseason, what are kind of the big moves you would do? So combining these into 2, this wouldn't be the most important thing, but even with all that pitching depth, and even if they did re-sign Rogers, I would still add one more veteran-type starting pitcher just to backfill for injuries and give you innings. You know, a Chris Bassett type pitcher. Doesn't have to be him again. I would love to, have Kevin Gausman here for 1 year and $20 million, at the end of his career. I think that'd be a perfect fit at the back end of the Orioles rotation, someone like that. But I do think you need to add another legitimate hitter, right? With a serious track record. They did that twice this offseason with Pete Alonso and Taylor Ward. And those 2 guys ended up being 2 of the Orioles' best hitters this season. And then they traded Ward. I mean, realistically, you could make an argument, and I would hear you out, that Alonso and Ward, at least until Ward was traded, were the top 2 hitters on this Orioles team, and those are the outside guys they went and got. Now, who knows how the lockout in this offseason is going to affect that? Who knows what guys are going to be available trade-wise? It's not a super strong free agent class. It's a little bit, obviously because of Skubal, it's stronger on pitching. Behind Skubal, it's not super strong in general. Maybe a Randy Arozarena, maybe an Ian Happ, maybe a Gleyber Torres, some of the top hitters that are going to be out there on the market. Maybe you find someone to trade for, right? But that would be my final big thing to do, Justin, is you have all these amazing pitching prospects. Some of them are going to get hurt. Some of them are going to flame out. Some of them are going to become good big leaguers for you, whether relievers or starters. And there's still going to be some left over that you don't have space for. You should be packaging some of these top pitching prospects and just trading them for the best player you can get, whether that's a starting pitcher, whether that's a position player, whatever. You should go and do that. And then the final thing I would do is have Mike Elias hire a GM. Clearly, Elias's job is not in jeopardy, and we've talked about why that is the case. But he has been promoted to president of baseball operations, leaving a GM opening below him. They talked about last offseason they were looking to hire someone, never really did it. I would do that, get a different face, different voice from outside the organization to come in. And maybe it is something where Elias focuses more on the draft and the big picture stuff and the system and the health of it as a whole. And this GM can be more of a day-to-day GM. Waiver claims, trades, free agents can be involved in those things as well. I think that would be nice for this team. Second question comes from Simon in the Everydayer Club Discord. What realistic moves do you think the Orioles could have made at the trade deadline? Right? This has been one of my issues with the deadline. The Orioles were obviously sellers, trading away Dean Kramer, Tyler Wells, Adley Rutschman, and Taylor Ward at the deadline without really adding anything. And yet Mike Elias coming out and saying, we still think we're competitors in the playoff race, despite selling off, at least 3 of the more productive players on the team this year. And it's tough to say guys who didn't get traded the Orioles should have gone after, like Ryan Stanek, a veteran, solid rental reliever for the Cardinals. Everybody thought he would get traded. He wasn't. So he can't say, oh, the O's should have gotten him. Maybe the Cardinals didn't really want to trade him. But for guys who were dealt, like, I was all over the veteran lefty Brooks Raley. Went from the Mets to the Phillies for 2 prospects. Like, you look at what the Phillies gave up, something like, double-A utility man RJ Austin, or I think he's maybe in Frederick right now, and then Twine Palmer, kind of a semi-intriguing lower-level pitching prospect. Like, you give those 2 guys, you beat the Phillies offer, and you get Brooks Raley. And that doesn't cost you basically anything from your system. Raley had a 1.96 ERA in 41 1/3 innings with the Mets before the trade. Would have been a nice cheap addition to help out the bullpen. And really, it would have been the bullpen. The other one for me, like Antonio Senzatella, another rental reliever, went from the Rockies to the Brewers for 2 prospects. Orioles comp, I mean, the Brewers didn't give up much at all. Maybe Cameron Weston, kind of a reliever on the 40-man now, and then Jordan Sanchez, kind of an intriguing outfield prospect in A-ball. Like, that would have easily beaten the Brewers deal. Senzatella was really good for the Rockies out of the bullpen, can go multiple innings, good stuff transitioning out of the rotation. And either of those guys would have been super expensive and would have absolutely at least helped the Orioles bullpen in the spot they're in now. And they still could have sold the other guys, and they just didn't do it. Those are 2 moves I feel like the Orioles could have easily made, not mortgage their future one bit, and helped the final 2 months of this team at least stay a little more competitive than they look right now, because they were in the race at the trade deadline. And somehow they're still in the race now. Third question of the day, Alec in the Everydayer Club says, what is your favorite off-season hobby? Don't all have to be Orioles or even baseball questions. I will say this is a sad answer, but some of it is just kind of catching up on other sports that I enjoy, right? For the 6 months of the baseball season, and really for more of it, because once the calendar turns to March, I really kind of lock in on what's going on at spring training. And then even if the Orioles season is over at the end of September, I'm locked into baseball for the postseason for all of October. So it's November through February. It's 4 months there really for me without baseball. So it is like, getting back in touch with the Ravens when it gets to October and November. I'm a huge college basketball fan. I love March Madness. I love college football. I really truly jump in at that point. I really jump in earlier to watch Maryland win the only games they'll win under Mike Loxley in the month of September, and then check out maybe a little bit right there. But it's not all sports for me. I read way more in the off season, mostly like nonfiction, history type, tell-all type books. Like right now I'm reading the giant book from James Andrew Miller about the history of HBO. I'm like a third of the way through this book. It's like 1,000+ pages. The offseason is definitely when I start new TV shows. We do a lot of reruns in the time that we watch TV in the house during the Orioles season. So if you have any really good TV recommendations, it's a good chance I've seen a good chunk of the shows. But if I haven't, we'll certainly check those things out. Those are the main things, right? It's like doing things outside, but obviously those 4 months are very much in the winter, so that makes that a little bit tougher. But still, if there's any ability to travel, do things outside, try to do more of that when I can in the off season. Fourth question comes from IW in the Everydayer Club, who said that they are making a trip to Baltimore from out of town in September and looking for places to eat in the city. It wasn't even really asked as fully a mailbag question, but I decided to take it that way. I set an exhaustive list of my favorite restaurants based on neighborhood they're in, based on cuisine that they sell, bars, restaurants, different vibes you're looking for, whatever it may be, that is pinned in the Everydayer Club Discord right now. So another perk of signing up. If you're looking for places to go eat and check out in the city, you get that full list. I'll give you a taste of that one. The specific question was about like seafood near the stadium. I said Nick's Fish House, right? Not too far away. You can sit on the water, eat a crab cake, eat some crabs. The pizza take was either Matthew's Pizza or Johnny Rad's. Those would be my top two. And then a sneaky third option for me would be Limoncello Pizzeria. Pretty good personal pies you can get there. The pho choice would be Pho Bach. That's no question about that one. I got asked about sushi. Kiko Sushi in Fed Hill would be the go-to. And then what's one more I want to just some other ones that I put because I had already either used their category or I didn't really know an exact cuisine to put them in because they're kind of fusion food. Eki Ben, Mystic Burrito, Little Donna's all had to go out there. Those are not ads, not paid by those places. Just enjoy their food and everything that they have to offer. But again, exhaustive list of my food takes in the Everydayer Club Discord, maybe even an upcoming bonus episode for everydayers as well. All right, 4 questions down. We got 8 more to get to. Coming up next, we'll talk a little bit about why does this season feel worse than last year? Why do Orioles players really continue to struggle at the major league level? And what kind of moves could happen moving forward when given some possibilities? That's coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Dose. Can we talk about one of the most underrated organs in your body? It's your liver. It's your body's filter, processing everything you consume and performing more than 500 functions every day. It's involved in things like energy production, digestion, fat metabolism, and vitamin storage. So it's doing a lot of work behind the scenes. That's why giving your liver daily support can be an important part of building healthy habits. Dose for Your Liver is a clinically backed liver health supplement designed to support daily liver function. Unlike another capsule or powder, Dose comes in a liquid 2-ounce daily shot that tastes just like fresh squeezed orange juice. It's 0 sugar, 0 junk, and 0 calories, making it an easy addition to your daily routine. I think that's the best part about Dose, right? You just pour it for yourself, pick it up, drink it. It tastes good, no extra stuff, and you're done, and your liver's in a better place for it. So ready to give your liver the support it deserves? Head to dosedaily.co/lockedonmlb or enter code LOCKEDONMLB to get 35% off your first subscription. Your body does so much for you. Let's do something for it. That's Dose Daily, dosedaily.co/lockedonmlb for 35% off your first month's subscription. And this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Stance. Now, before we get back into today's show, it's time for the Everyday Icon presented by Stance. As the official sock partner of Major League Baseball, Stance knows greatness isn't built in a single moment. It's earned over time through consistency, preparation, and showing up every day. That's why we're recognizing one player whose performance embodies those same qualities. And while the Orioles did lose 2 pretty crucial series this week, I got to say, we still got to give out this award. So this week's Everyday Icon, I'm going to give it to Josh Walker. You know what? He had a couple of really nice relief appearances for the Orioles this week. Kind of an unheralded lefty, came over on waivers last year, didn't really come up to the O's until this season when they were completely out of lefties, right? Dietrich N's not good. Keegan Aiken, Tommy John surgery. Grant Wolfram is getting worse after a really great start to the year. Orioles didn't add a lefty at the deadline. They traded away Tyler Wells. Rico Garcia, not as trustworthy anymore. Ryan Helsley's injured. It's been downhill for this Oriole bullpen, but Josh Walker has looked good. And right now, he's the number 1 lefty in the Oriole bullpen because of Wolfram's struggles. And you got to give it to a 30-year-old journeyman reliever in Josh Walker trying to find a spot in a big league bullpen. He is our Everyday Icon. The Everyday Icon is presented by Stance. Check out the Icon collection from Stance. Premium comfort, performance, and durability designed for whatever your day brings. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for 20% off your purchase. Stance, the official sock partner of Major League Baseball. Learn more at stance.com. This Locked On Orioles mailbag episode rolls on here as we get to question number 5 of the day. This one comes from Johnny in the Everydayer Club, who asks, why does the 2026 Orioles season feel so much worse than 2025? Even though the Orioles record is better in 2026, the team is more talented in 2026, and they are much closer to a playoff spot here in mid-August than they were in mid-August of 2025. Well, why does it feel worse? Because I would agree, Johnny, it does feel worse. Some of it's going to be recency bias, right? More than a year ago was when the last Orioles season ended. This one feels like it's coming to a close now. This is happening right now. We're feeling the feelings more than what we can remember more than a year ago. Some of it is also how early the 2025 Orioles were done, right? They fired Brandon Hyde in mid-May. The Orioles were 12 games under 500 already. And if you didn't think it was over by then, we got to June and they clearly weren't turning it around under Tony Mansolino. That season was over in June. We're in mid-August, and the Orioles are still just 2 games out of a playoff spot. So while I feel like we're getting to the done version, they are still in it with 41 games to play. So that's very different as well, because when it's over in June, I mean, you're fully checked out by the All-Star break at the latest last year, and you knew they were going to be sellers at the deadline. It wasn't somewhat of a surprise like it was this year. You could get excited about the young guys coming up. You know, you had Samuel Basayo and Dylan Beavers, 2 exciting prospects debuting in August. You got to watch them for 6 weeks. They had some cool moments. We don't really have that like top prospect type guy that we know is going to debut later this year to look forward to. So that's why it feels a little bit worse as well. And this team is in it, but it's mostly because of a terrible American League, not because the Orioles are playing so much better. They're still 5 games under 500 this year. And maybe that makes it worse, right? Like, I think 82-80 is going to be the record of the final wildcard team in the AL. Literally being 1 game, or I guess it's 2 games over 500, is going to put a team in the playoffs. I truly believe 82 wins is what it's going to take. You're like, a team this talented in a year when 82 wins makes the playoffs, and it looks like the Orioles are still going to miss the postseason, that hurts even more than it just being like, well, it was still a regular year in the AL last year. The Orioles just stunk in every category possible. Another part is the team is healthier this year, right? There's still been injuries. No Jordan Westberg. Missing Blaze Alexander has been tough. Ryan Helsley's gone down a couple of times. You lose Zach Eflin after 1 start. Like, all of those things have certainly hurt this team. But it's not the injuries to the level that they saw last year, right? Gunner's playing through something all year. Adley misses a ton of time. Westberg, Kalzer miss a ton of time. You lose like an entire starting rotation at one point due to injuries. So while injuries can still be used as a reason, certainly, it's much less of an excuse than it was last year. It's more about underperformance of the players that are out there. And also, as I talked about on the episode earlier this week, not only has starting pitching been healthier, starting pitching in the metric of just being like healthy and above average is the best it's been since 2014. And that's being wasted because the offense is underperforming. That hurts even more. And finally, what I think is the biggest reason why 2026 feels worse is because of how it makes you think about the future outlook of the team. And this is even before they traded away Adley Rutschman at the deadline. Last year was a bad year, but it was coming off, back-to-back playoff appearances, 3 straight good years. And you could just chalk it up to like everything going wrong in 2025. You had all the injuries, the terrible start, you fire your manager, guys having down years. It was like a confluence of horrible events. And you were just like, you know what? This team still has a lot of talent here. They only mostly sold the rental pieces at the deadline. The core of the team is still together. They've got the talent to be good again in 2026. And you're like, this happens to teams sometimes in like their good windows. They have a down year, and that seemed to happen to the 2025 Orioles. And then they compounded it by saying, Mike Elias being like, we're going to have the most aggressive offseason we've ever had under my leadership. And they go and get Pete Alonso, and they make the Taylor Ward move, and they trade for Shane Baz and extend him, and they're extending other guys. Bradish eventually gets an extension. Basayo gets an extension after he's called up. Things are looking up. They're adding to the team, certainly. And it didn't start as bad, but almost as bad, essentially. And it's like, now it happened again. And again, it's a little better this year, but not back to the postseason. Still a bad year, at least to this point. And you felt confident last year, they can bounce back. Now it's happened 2 years in a row with less injuries this year and with a more aggressive offseason. Because the offseason going into 2025 was not aggressive at all. And that was another reason they were bad. They tried to fix that, and I thought they did a good job. It feels like now less of a one-off and more of a pattern of being bad. And that, I think, makes you question much more about the overall and future outlook of this organization. There's more just doom and gloom long term. And that is, I think, the number one reason why this year does feel worse than last season. Sixth question of the day comes from Alex in the Everydayer Club. He says, I feel like Mike Elias has done a fantastic job building and maintaining the overall health of the entire organization, but can't put it together at the major league level. Is it a case of player development stalling at the big leagues? Is it a lack of mental toughness? Are these guys just able to dominate lesser talent, like the equivalent of playing versus the computer on rookie mode in the show and then getting killed when you jump online against real talent? I think this is a good question. I don't think I have the time or the insight or the answers to fully answer this one, Alex, but I still really appreciated it, so I wanted to put it in here because I just don't know, right? Lots of prospects first struggle when they get to the big league. Some struggle for a while. There's certainly a mental element to all of this for a lot of professional athletes, and I think that is definitely a factor to what is happening with the Orioles right now. I think it could be a little bit of everything, and again, I don't love putting a mailbag question in here where I don't feel like I can give a good enough answer, and that's what I feel like with this one, but I wanted to put it in here because it's like, we don't really know. Like, I'm not sure Mike Elias or David Rubenstein or Craig Albernaz have the answer. The players themselves don't have the answers. If they did have the answers, they probably would have turned it around a little bit better by now, and they clearly have not. And so how are we from the outside supposed to feel like we have the answers to what's going on inside this team? It could be a little bit of all of this, but I just don't know. And that kind of goes back to the last question about feeling worse this year. Now that it's been 2 years in a row, I just don't know. And that makes it almost more frustrating to watch this team out there because like it's not a quick fix that's going to save them. There might be real serious issues within this organization. Seventh question of the day. Thank you to the Everydayers. Those are the Everydayer questions. Seventh question of the day comes from John via email. John says, I know you're a big fan of selling high for seemingly overperforming relievers who might come back down to earth. But how do you reconcile now with the Bryan Baker trade? This is a really good question from John because the Orioles traded Baker to the Rays before last year's deadline with 4.5 years of team control remaining. Orioles got a draft pick, a pick they then used and then flipped again to get Shane Baz from the Rays. Turned out to be a really good addition to their rotation. Now, Bryan Baker was, a waiver claim late in 2021, just another reliever on the carousel, but the Orioles changed him a little bit. He was really good in 2022. Then he was really bad for the two playoff years, 23 and 24. He was on one of the postseason rosters, but it was not a good stretch of 2 seasons. And then entering 2025, Bryan Baker was still on the roster, but he was out of minor league options for the first time. It was essentially his last chance to grab a spot in the bullpen again, and he turned it around. He found a new changeup grip in spring training. It allowed him to command that pitch finally, which has always been the best pitch in his arsenal, but he never knew where it was going. And last year before the trade with the O's, he had a 3.52 ERA, a 33% strikeout rate to a 6% walk rate for a guy who had serious walk issues the previous 2 years. And I think the Orioles thought that would be his peak. And you add that to the fact that he lost roster flexibility without options. He's a guy that you sell high on. And I think the Orioles made the right move. And I still think they made the right move in selling high. But the Rays have unlocked something else. Bryan Baker was an all-star this year. He's got 34 saves to lead the American League. He's got a 1.55 ERA in 46 1/3 innings, 29% K rate to a 9% walk rate. And this is the risk you run when you are trading relievers at peak value, because some guys will even come down from their peak, but they'll still stay good. They won't tank and become bad. Well, Baker clearly has taken even another step forward. The thing is, moves like this are never going to come without risk. Even if you make a move like this because you think it's the right move, there's always going to be risk that it doesn't work out. But more often than not, guys are probably going to regress themselves back down to the mean. The process isn't going to be perfect. You're going to miss on ones, and they missed here with at least Bryan Baker. Now, I was always a fan of Bryan Baker, probably held on to him for a lot longer than most people did when he was going through his struggles in 23 and 24. What's the changes? The fastball's got a little more ride this year, similar velo, maybe just commanding it better. But the big change is the pitch usage. And the thing that annoys me is that I yelled about this for a long time. Bryan Baker used to throw 4-seam fastball, slider, and changeup. And he threw them all fairly equally, especially the changeup and the slider after his fastball. He went from 25% slider usage with the Orioles last year to 4% slider usage with the Rays this year. And all of that slider usage went to his changeup, shot way up on the usage of what has been his best pitch. And what's annoying for me is that I used to understand why he threw so many sliders. His slider is not a good pitch. I never liked it. It got hit hard, hated that pitch. But I understood why he threw it, because he would go through long stretches where he just couldn't command his changeup at all. And he had to throw something besides the fastball, because even though it was a good fastball, if guys can sit on it, you're going to get hit. But last season, when he broke back out and he found that new changeup command and grip that allowed him to change that pitch, that should have been the moment that he dumped the slider and just went all fastball changeup. And whether he refused to do it or the Orioles didn't ask him to do it, either way, they missed an opportunity right there. The Rays saw it, took it, boom, unlocked him once again. Maybe the O's would have gotten him to do it, maybe not. We won't really know. It stinks that he's in division and pitching this well. I don't think Bryan Baker is going to be this good for the next 3 seasons, be an all-star closer, but it was in there. And unfortunately, this one, at least at this point, didn't work out for the O's. But I don't think the 2026 Orioles are one Bryan Baker away from being a postseason team. I think they definitely need a little more than that. Next question of the day comes from Mark via email. Mark sent me 5 statements and said, which of the following statements will come true? Number 1, Gunnar Henderson will be traded prior to the start of the 2027 season, and Blaze Alexander will be the opening day shortstop. Statement number 2, Trevor Rogers will be extended by the Orioles. Statement number 3, Mike Elias will be fired prior to the 2027 season. Statement number 4, Craig Albernaz will remain as the team's manager and will manage the team through the entire 2027 season. And statement number 5, the Orioles will sign a legitimate ace starting pitcher, not named Trevor Rogers, equal to or better than any pitcher currently on the O's roster. I would say statement number 2, Trevor Rogers will be extended, and statement number 4, Craig Albernaz will be the manager at least through all of next season, are the 2 of these 5 that will come true. I think Rogers, he's been very public about wanting to stay with the Orioles. I think the Orioles want him back, but he certainly still wants to test free agency. I think the understanding probably is that the O's, at the very least, will try to match any offer he's given in free agency. It's just about whether or not he'll take it. So maybe it won't be an extension, but I'll still say it's true that he goes to free agency and then eventually re-signs with the Orioles for 3 or 4 years. And then for Albernaz, most managers get at least 2 seasons to figure things out. And even if it started off badly again next year, I think he'd be given the runway to get 2 years. Who knows? I think the Albernaz one is the most likely, followed by Trevor Rogers. Then if you wanted me to rank them as most likely, third most likely would be number 5, Orioles signing a legitimate ace starting pitcher, because they have the money to do it. Although I just think their pitching's in a good spot and they need bats more than they need arms right now. Next most likely would be number 1. That was Gunnar being traded prior to the start of the season. It's possible because they just traded Adley, but why would they trade Gunnar Henderson at his lowest value ever? He's been horrendous this season for the first time in his career. At least with Adley, they waited until he had a bounce back season this year, got his value back up, and then traded him. I can guarantee you Gunnar Henderson will be better in 2027. How much better? Who knows? But better, and will up his value. Could he be traded at next deadline? Absolutely. Very unlikely he gets traded in the offseason. And then number 3, which was Mike Elias, will be fired prior to next season. That one, I think there's 0 chance basically of that happening. I've talked about why. You don't get allowed to trade Adley Rutschman at the deadline with 1.5 years of control left when you're in the race and do a full sell for a second straight deadline if there's pressure on you, if there's a hot seat on you. That told me everything I need to know, that David Rubenstein and Michael Arrighetti have given Elias full job security at least through next season. I don't see him being fired before the year. All right, 4 more questions to get to. We talk about most valuable Oriole. We talk about comparisons to the Adley trade, some prospects, and the Orioles defense as well. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like watching an Orioles game. Even better when you get to watch it live. The excitement, the fans, the commiseration, turn to the person next to you and say, how did they not make that play? The only problem can be that getting tickets feels like a grind. Long queues, surprise fees, and prices jumping at checkout. Well, that's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means you get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are included in the price you see. What you see is what you pay, period. And that's the best part. I'm on Game Time right now looking to go to Wednesday night's game at home against the Yankees. And the Game Time app just says this is the price of the seat. It's not going to jump when you put it in your cart. That's going to be the price the whole time. That's why I love shopping at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Clutch Parlays. Whether you're betting on the big game, player props, or building your next parlay, having the right information makes all the difference. Tracking odds across sportsbooks like FanDuel, finding value picks, building parlays, tracking bets, and analyzing performance, Clutch Parlays gives you the tools to make every wager with more confidence. What makes Clutch Parlays stand out is how they feel and make everything so accessible. Instead of piecing together odds, pregame analysis, predictions, tracking, and analytics, etc., Clutch Parlays brings it all together in one streamlined experience. So maybe you've got a 2-bet parlay, maybe you got a 10-bet parlay, but you can get all the data you need on it at Clutch Parlays. Find the best line, build smarter parlays, track every bet, make more informed betting decisions, all with ClutchParlays.com. Go to ClutchParlays.com today. Use code LOCKEDON for your first month free on a monthly plan. ClutchParlays.com. Bring together live odds, line shopping, predictions, bet tracking, and analytics in one place so you can bet with more confidence. Pick smarter and parlay sharper. All right, we got our final chunk of mailbag questions to get to today. Let's go to question number 9. This one comes from Quinn via email. Who do you think is going to be most valuable Oriole? Quinn posited Pete Alonso. I got to say that I agree with Quinn on this one. I mean, there's not a lot of scenarios where it's not Pete Alonso right now. I mean, you look at the WAR leaders on the team at Fangraphs. Pete's number 1 at 3.3. Shane Baz is number 2 at 3.0. Then it's Trevor Rogers, 2.5. Adley Rutschman, 2.3. He's not going to win it. And then Gunnar Henderson at 2.2. He's obviously not going to win it. There's a chance for Rogers or Baz, but there's just enough hiccups for those two guys that I think Pete Alonso has come in and just been exactly what the Orioles wanted him to be. He's played in every single game. He's got a 134 WRC+, which is pretty standard for Pete Alonso offensive performance. He's been a leader for this team. He's turned into like a Gold Glove level first baseman. I don't think it goes to anyone else but Pete Alonso. Question number 10. This comes from Tom via email. Hey, Connor, I'm still in mourning over seeing Adley go, and I've been watching his every at-bat with the Red Sox as though I'm stalking an ex on Facebook. Tom, you should. It's just going to make you sad. Just going to make you sad. Nonetheless, over 2 games, Adley had yet to hit a ball out of the infield, talking about his performance, said, here we sit with a bunch of top 10 prospects in the Red Sox system. That seems kind of amazing how many prospects we got. How do you think this deal ranks compared to other lopsided deals in terms of the prospect haul given away for the talent acquired? Was this a historic coup by the Orioles in that regard? This trade, and thinking about it this way, makes me think back to one trade in semi-recent Orioles history in the 21st century. And I think we're all thinking about the same one. That is the Eric Bedard trade. The Orioles traded 3 years of team control of lefty starter Eric Bedard to the Mariners when he was coming off back-to-back great seasons. He was the Orioles ace pretty easily at that point. Looked like he could be an ace for many other teams. And the O's got 5 players back. Adam Jones, George Sherrill, Chris Tillman, Cam Micolio, and Tony Butler. Now, Butler was the only one who never made the majors, and Micolio only pitched 25 innings for the Orioles over the next 3 years before being released. But the other 3 guys were all All-Stars. They got 3 future All-Stars in the same deal for Eric Bedard, who was really never the same pitcher with Seattle and other teams. George Sherrill immediately, this trade happened after the 2007 season, so the offseason between 2007 and 2008. Sherrill immediately became the Orioles closer in 2008 and made the All-Star team as their closer, then was flipped to the Dodgers at the 2009 deadline for Josh Bell, not that Josh Bell, another Josh Bell, and Steve Johnson. Both guys who ended up being big leaguers for the Orioles. Bell was kind of a flame-out prospect, though Steve Johnson was on the 2012 team that went to the playoffs and was warming up in the first inning of that wild card game. Of course, Adam Jones was a star for this Orioles team for a long time. Chris Tillman was the ace of the next staff of the next Orioles great team. I mean, he was the ace of the 2014 Orioles, started game 1 of the playoffs that year. He had a great career as a pitcher for the O's. So if, Andy Azokar can be a future star center fielder, and Anthony Ionson's your next ace, and maybe Kyson Witherspoon turns into the next closer for the Orioles years down the road. Maybe if they can get a similar Bedard-type return it ends up with from this Adley trade, it would look like a pretty good haul for the Orioles. Question number 11 comes from Raptor via email. Do you think the Orioles will call up any big prospects in September? Reed Trimble is a guy I wanted to see. He's on the 40-man. He again got hurt in Thursday's AAA Norfolk game because it's Reed Trimble, and of course he did. Your other possibilities, Peyton Eales, Enrique Bradfield Jr., Heston Kjerstad, Nestor Herman, Michael Ferret. Of course, Kjerstad's already debuted. He's the only one on the 40-man. The other guys would have to be added. I think it's possible for some of them to come up, but they have enough starting pitching depth, and there's some other outfielders they're wanting to get a look at before they go to EBJ or other infielders before Peyton Eales. There's just not those big prospects like Basayo or Beavers kind of ready to break through at this point, so not as many exciting names will come up late this year. And the final question comes from Shirley via email, who essentially asked, why has the Orioles defense been so bad this year? It's a multitude of factors. Some of it is Colton Cowser's been awesome, but is certainly not playing center field every day. You had Taylor Ward in left field pretty much every day until you traded him. And while he gave you some good stuff with the bat, as we learned, he's not a very good defensive left fielder playing out there in the cavernous left field at Oriole Park. That hurt them. And what they really wanted, I think, was Dylan Beavers to take a step forward defensively. Not only did he not take a step forward, but he looked pretty bad, and the Orioles were still starting him in center field from time to time, which made them even worse. Out in the outfield, Tyler O'Neill was pretty solid out there. Blaze Alexander I thought was okay when he was out there. Also, just not having Jordan Westbrook all season. He's a good defender at third base. Not only do you lose that, but you replace him mostly with Kobe Mayo, who is a horrendous defender at third base and brings down the entire defense. Now, it got much better once we started seeing a lot more Blaze Alexander over at third. And the other one was, Leody Taveras ended up playing more than the Orioles thought just because Cowser wasn't very good and Taveras was hitting early in the year. But Taveras took another step back defensively, especially in center field, and that has really hurt the team as well. And the other big thing that isn't just an Orioles problem, it's a problem across Major League Baseball right now. Fundamentals, especially defensively, are down across the league. Many people have their theories as to why. I think it's just not trained and practiced as much at the youth level. A lot of high-level youth baseball for kids who are prospects and getting recruited and looking to play in college and eventually in the minors and get drafted and play in the big leagues is these showcase events. And while these showcase events involve games and you're playing gameplay action, there's so much more showcase stuff that it's less just playing games with low pressure, learning how to make mistakes, learning what base to throw to, how to field a ground ball, all these things. It's not that kids don't do it and can't do it. It's just they do it less than they have in a previous generation. And I think that is leading to some good things for the game in one hand, how we're able to use data to find better players. But on the flip side, I think it's just lowered the level of defense in the game in general. And when you have a team that already is not built to be good defensively, aka the 2026 Orioles, it looks even worse. And I think that's what happened to this year's team. But thank you all for sending in your mailbag questions. Remember, if you join the Everydayer Club for $5 per month, you guarantee your mailbag questions will be asked on a mailbag episode. You also get ad-free episodes. You get access to our Discord channel, and you get 2 bonus pods per month. The first one of August is coming out this weekend. I'm going to look at some previous trades of teams trading away kind of faces of the franchise type guys like Adley Rutschman with more than a year left before free agency, what those teams got back, and some good stories and maybe not so good stories for the Orioles to look at as past precedent. Support us here on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Remember, if you do and leave a comment about your favorite Adley moment, you're entered to win the Adley Rutschman golfing bobblehead that will close tonight at midnight. And then also you can support us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. And if you have future mailbag questions, want to talk some ball, feedback for the show, you can always email me, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. It's the Orioles and the Rays this weekend. The O's are TBD for all 3 games. My guess is that Chris Bassett will be activated off the injured list tonight and will start game 1. The lefty Steven Matz is going to get the start for the Rays in this one. The Rays, who just swept the A's and now have the best record in baseball at 74-46. I mean, just an unbelievable story for this Rays team that kind of retooled itself in the offseason and is now this good this year. It's just astounding. For Matz, he's kind of returning himself to the rotation. His last 2 outings have just been 1 inning. So we'll see if he's an opener or he's actually going to start this game on Friday. That's a 7:10 start. Saturday's game is at 6:10. Ian Seymour, another left-hander, will go for the Rays. This means more than likely, again, the Orioles have not named their starter, but more than likely Trevor Rogers will get the ball on Saturday. And then on Sunday, it is the Peacock Sunday leadoff game. So it'll be at 12:15 p.m. on Peacock and NBC Sports Network. That will be Freddie Peralta, the new addition for the Rays, who's not been very good in his first two starts with the Rays. It is also TBD for the Orioles, but again, more likely than not will be Brandon Young getting the ball on Sunday. And then I'll be back on Monday recapping the first three games of this weird wraparound 4-game series, because the final game of the series is actually on Monday. So they're just going to play 4 games, kind of wrap it around the weekend. So the series won't be over when I'm back Monday, but I will recap the first 3 games. Until then, though, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.